This will be a presentation that will show how modern science validates and supports the concepts that Vedanta has come with, Hindu religion has come with from innumerable years. The Vedas said what there was to be said, and now science tries to catch up with it. I'll read you a little bit of an excerpt from this book, Vedanta, which introduces the subject better than I can. So this will be, I'll read it to you right now. Strange as it may seem, many of the conclusions of modern science are corroborating those of ancient Vedanta, though they follow different methods. In 1893, Swami Vivekananda, the greatest modern expounder of Vedanta, said that the latest discoveries, this is a quote, the latest discoveries of science seem like echoes to the high spiritual flights of Vedanta philosophy. First the Vedas, and now science tried to catch up. Since then, with the advance in physics and other sciences, these echoes are growing more and more distinct and near to the original. This is because, whatever the methods we adopt, the mind is our only real instrument of investigation. And when we go deep into the heart of things, physics merges with philosophy. Both science and philosophy gather facts, analyze experience, systematize knowledge, and try to find a unity, which is the source and explanation of all these diversified phenomena. So there'll be 4 different areas of Hinduism and Vedanta that we'll explore. We'll start with a little audience participation. If you could please put your hand below your back so you keep a straight back like this. So your back is straight, that's the meditation position. Then close your eyes and breathe out, and every time you exhale, count 1, 2, 3, up to 10 within you. And after that, we'll all say Om for a few seconds. So let's do that now. Hold your hand behind the back, close your eyes, and count exhales up to 10. And after you're done with that, we will go to the Om. Now we're all tuned in the same page. That's because we meditated, became calm, and we chanted Om, which is the sound of the universe. So everybody with their own voice, with their Om, connects with the universal Om. You'll see later on how that goes. So let's go. The first concept is about meditation, then Om, then the unity of everything, and then this world is an illusion. So we'll start with the concept of meditation. Abhi?
So the way in India we grow up and develop an understanding about yoga, we kind of understand that it is the act of perfecting our actions. And you need something?
No, go ahead.
All right. It is just the act of perfecting our actions. And it can be understood in multiple number of ways. When you talk about physical yoga, it is the thing when you're concentrating your energies and your understanding to train one of the many parts of your body. That's when we talk about physical yoga, and these are the things that people kind of demonstrate, or the yogis in India demonstrate, and are practiced by a lot of Westerners too. If you would go to India, you would see them practicing those physical yoga elements in the meditation camps. But that is just the first part of the story, because it prepares a base camp for the next thing or the next step of meditation that needs to be accomplished. And that's what you see the monk is doing in the picture. And that act requires the monk not to concentrate his energies to just the one physical part of his body, but to rather collect all those energies and all his faculties and concentrate them on understanding his brain, because it's the brain that is coordinating all the activities of the body. So it's the act of collecting your faculties and trying to understand your brain, and using that understanding to understand the entire universe that exists within us. And so this is how the practice of meditation is understood. And what Sam is going to do is he's going to take that thing and extend it to science and investigate the parallel that exists between meditation as a bodily process and how investigators are trying to come up with the parallel of merging the picture of spirituality with that of science.
Scientists need the hard facts. Scientists need the hard facts, graphs, numbers, equations to prove something, to validate it. Well, they try to do that with meditation. So they got a monk, they wired him up the brain to see what's happening when he meditates. And the monk started meditating, and what they saw is that their brain waves change. This says when someone has hyperactivity, which is when the brain is really excited. This is when you're busy, engage in activities and conversation. This is when you're relaxed, deep in meditation. This is when you're drifting down to sleep, and this deep asleep and dreaming. So this is not proof of anything. This just shows that something is happening with the brain. The wave, the frequency changes. Now, in the Hindu practice, that's an indication that meditation is taking effect. In the science practice, it means that something is happening, but we don't know what, because science doesn't believe or trust or know about meditation. They just know that something's happening. But this supports the fact that something is happening when you meditate. And this is an example. Here it shows it's a 2-minute meditation, how the heart rate varies when you meditate. And this is how it varies when you watch 2 minutes of, when you watch the internet. So, obviously, this person feels calm and even while this person goes through up and down emotions. If you're in this state, you can meditate and concentrate your thoughts and come to a state that you want to be. In this state, the web has you as a prisoner. It takes you away for your normal state.
Right. Got the video for the tuning fork.
Now we'll talk about the Om. This was about meditation, how Vedanta sees it and how science sees it. This is about the Om. It shows what resonance means. This experiment shows the concept of resonance, which means when you have one frequency, one wave, it engages another frequency on another, the same frequency on another object. In this case, the tuning fork, when it was strung the first time, makes the second one vibrate, although the second one wasn't hit by anything. It's just the waves that transfer to that. And it does that because they have something similar, which is they're tuned to the same frequency. Now, this is what happens in the universe, what the Om of the universe sounds like. After the Big Bang, they found that there is a constant hum in the universe. What do you hear now? First they thought that it was a defect of their instruments, and then they tried to subtract the defect, they subtract this, and at the end they came up with some sound that they couldn't explain where it's from, and this is it here. With the proper instrument you do sound this. Now, what we did before, I'll explain now, is each one of us said the big Om has all the frequencies in it, contains all the voices, all the sounds. So everyone's Om engages with the big Om. And when everybody's engaged with the same Om, we all become the same. If A equals B and C equals B, then A equals C. So now we're all tuned in because we all said Om to the same source. So everybody knows, pay attention. Where are we next? Oh. So that's about meditation, about the Om, how it's seen spiritually, and how it's seen the spiritual thing we passed.
So the point that he's trying to make here is that it all comes down to the point of synchronicity. Everything in nature works with frequencies. Every action of yours and everything that you do, even like moving your hand, picking up a bucket of water, watering the plants. And there is a natural resonance for every action that we do. And there is no way to understand it or to see it scientifically, but there is a way to do it, and the only way to do it is to understand that it is synchronized in the form of a syllable Om. So when you're practicing that act, even by in your head you're speaking the word Om, or you're just remembering the word Om, it automatically synchronizes your actions. And with practice, any of your activity gets synchronized, or it attains that equilibrium with the other activities. For example, when a tabla player or a drummer, he continues his practice, he starts to feel those sticks in his hand, and he's able to sense the vibrations of the skins. So in a sense, he's communicating with the drum kit. And it is just that communication that has been established is what you would think of as yoga. And that is one form of a physical yoga that the drummer has learned. And with his practice, he becomes a yogi, and he evolves to be a good drummer. That is the evolution of any process that we all do. And every process resonates with the background processes of the universe. And what the Indian scriptures tell us is that every process can be broken down by just the use of the syllable Om. That is the beginning and the end of every activity you do. And if you just remember that word and mix that out with your feelings, with your sensations, then you can flip the coin the other side. And that very activity turns into what you call as yoga. And applying that activity on the brain, and from the brain to the heart, that is what is the final aim of all the yogic processes and all the yogic activities. So this is the position of Om with respect to yoga.
And the position of the science is tune in your instrument to the outmost edges of the universe where the Big Bang started, and you try to capture what's in the universe. And with all the electronic instruments, that's what you just saw. That's what they hear. This is an actual sound multiplied 10 to the 26th, which is quite a big number, but it is there. And it's not a mechanical defect of the instrument. There is something there. And that's why, as he said, if you can tune in yourself with the cosmic Om just by humming Om. The next topic that we'll look into is the unity of the universe. That's my favorite one because I really believe in it. This is Einstein came up with this equation, E equals mc squared, that says that energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. This is a very simple equation, but it describes the universe with 3 letters. The first one is energy. Energy is something that we don't see. It's invisible, but we know its effects. We see the lamp shining, electricity goes through, which is the energy, but I don't see the electricity. When you see this falling, I won't throw it because it'll break. The energy that I put into it gets transformed into kinetic energy. So energy can only be transformed from one type to another type. It can never be lost, it can never be created, it can never be destroyed. And here's some examples. Forms of energy. You have the thermal energy, melts the ice cream or heats the soup. You have electromagnetic energy. You have the lights, radios. You have electrical energy, the lightning, the lights, chemical energy, nuclear energy, mechanical energy. All this is energy in different forms. Energy is one, just manifests itself in different forms. And it's strange that energy cannot be created or destroyed, which means that's it in the universe, that's only energy. And the amount of energy is the same, it cannot be destroyed. And you cannot have more energy, it cannot be created. And this, it's not a statement that I made up, it's a proof. All scientific processes use that as a base to proceed in any equation. The fact that it's called the conservation of energy. Well, that's what energy is. Now, matter, it's a piece of solid. It can be solid, liquid, or air, a gas. When we have matter, if we break this down, we see it's composed from molecules. This was in ancient Greece, and I think, I forget his name, but he thought that if you cut something in half, and then more in half, and then half, you come to a point where you cannot cut it anymore. And that's called an atom. A means negates, atom means cut. In other words, there's no more cut after that. Well, they didn't have microscopes then or anything to see that. Then when microscopes were invented, we were be able to see that. So a molecule is composed of different atoms. Each atom is composed of a nucleus, neutron, proton, electron, the components of the atom. Those are composed with quarks. These are composed of more. And we haven't found the end yet. At any stage, we thought we came to the end, but always there was more investigation, more research, and always come down to something else. The recent theory is the string theory, which says that this particle, the quarks, it's not a particle, it's solid. It's a wave of energy, it's a string of energy. And according to the wavelength of this string, you have a proton, electron. There's no mass, there's no item to hold on to, there's nothing to touch. It's all energy. It just presents itself as matter to us. It's very interesting to think about what we see around us. An atom is the most simple atom. Atom is the hydrogen. It has one proton in the center and one neutron, and another electron runs around it. In proportion, if you have the atom, this nucleus, a basketball ball this size, the electron is 17 miles around, goes around. That's the proportion. The atom is just empty space. And it's interesting how we don't see empty space, although most of it is empty space. So, we haven't stopped.
Not moving next. Can you change the slide? Yeah.
Okay. This is the matter. We found out that the basic component of matter is the hydrogen, which has one proton in the middle and one electron runs around. Now, after that, they combine and they make the periodic table, which is 118 atoms, different elements. They're all listed here. Some of them are man-made. I don't know how they do it, but they do it. There is nature is all compacted here. This is everything you find in nature is a combination of these elements. We happen to use oxygen right here. We have hydrogen is over there, and anything else you know around is either one of these or a combination of this. So, one step further. Now we explained the energy, what energy is, what matter is, and now what light is, because the equation is E equals mc squared. E we saw, m we saw this is the c, which is the speed of light. There is the whole world, the whole universe is electromagnetic waves, which starts with this kind of wavelength, and these are the radio, television, satellites, the sunlight, medical X-rays, and it gets more compacted, the radiation. Now, the visible light is just this segment. There is more in this side, but we don't see. Some animals do see that. And there's more on this side of the spectrum that we do not see. Ultraviolet, infrared, all these exist, but you have cameras, infrared cameras, where if you take a picture, you don't see the items, you see only where there's heat. They use it in houses when they want to see if they're not insulated well. They take a picture and they see it's obvious where there's a leak, because the temperature there is different than the temperature of the rest. So all these exist, we just don't see them. The ones out there, we don't see them, but we can hear them. It's radio waves, or television waves, or microwaves. They're all there. Now, and that's the light part. Now, Einstein said that,
Try again.
Is that the one? I can't see.
That's the one with the light one, and that's the other one.
Okay. Now, what Einstein said is that matter is energy, because if you take energy and you compact it, you make a molecule, you make an atom. If you take the atom and you break it up, you make energy. This is not a theory. We've seen it, unfortunately, in the war. What this is a split of uranium atom. The nucleus has many subatomic inside particles. They held together with a very strong force because they're all charged the same way. They're all positive, but they're glued together. The minute you hit it with another basic particle, you split it. And the energy that was holding them together becomes this explosion. Now, as it comes out, it releases 3 more, let's say, bullets that hit another atom. You have the energy coming out, then another 3 atoms, and you have a reaction, a chain reaction. When that gas comes to a point, it explodes, which you see here. Then you have the radiation and all the other forms of energy, but mainly this is ungluing the nucleus. And there's so much force in it that this is a grain of rice converted into energy. The energy here was the mass of the grain of rice times the speed of light, which the speed of light is 156,000 miles per second times the same amount. The number is astronomical. So everything we see around, this is matter, which is compact energy. So all we see around us, we see matter. We don't see energy, but matter is compact energy. So I don't know why it's not obvious to everyone that energy is everywhere, anything. Just that this is solid energy, while this falling down, it's just plain energy. It hasn't been transformed to anything. So I think this, if it's not a proof of unity, I don't know what is. The equation holds, it's true, it's been tested. We have exploded the atom. We know that if you split the atom, you make matter into energy. So any matter is energy. So I don't know if there's anything doubts that everything is energy, and that there's only one big energy that can be destroyed or created. It just exists. And that's the Brahman, as it's named by the Hindu religion. I find it obvious. I don't know if there could be an argument in it, because there are physical experiments and proofs.
It's an illusion one.
Oh, so this is that. You're supposed to go first.
All right.
He's supposed to go first, so this comes later.
So the entire idea behind, showing all these science clips is that just the way you saw the electromagnetic spectrum behave, it stretches itself over time. That's the same thing that applies to every form that exists in nature. And what science explores should be a lesson that we should learn, is that you know how to manipulate nature, and you are seeing the different forms of nature, and you are able to appreciate that because of the gift of science. But the idea is that everything works in science only when it is fine-tuned. You do not get a signal if your radio is not tuned. The TV does not operate, not even the electron it does not even escape the atom if it is not tuned. So the very beginning of the very fundamentals that we understand, it begins from fine-tuning. Every process initiates after it gets tuned. And what the Hindu scriptures emphasize is the same thing applies to the unknown, that we're not seeing by our eyes, but we know that it's there, and we know that it is what forms us, and it is around which we form ourselves. And now being able to smile at the idea of that unknown, and just not understanding that the same principles that science teaches us are the same principles that need to be applied to the human body and to the human mind if you want to know the full story. And that should be taken as a lesson from science and incorporated in our daily lives. And that becomes a yoga in itself. The process itself is in yoga. When you're dancing with nature, when all of your actions are tuned to nature, then you have evolved. And that's what science is trying to do. And those are the parallels that I see between science and the things that the Hindu tradition teaches us, or what the stories tell us.
So the unity that the Vedas talk about, the Hindu religion is about, that unity is shown right here, which means this is energy, pure energy, which came from matter, and that's all there is. energy. That's the unity. That is transformed in different forms, all the manifestations that Swami tells us. Same thing in different forms. That's a basic concept that he emphasizes, that everything around is the same thing in different forms. The same Brahman in different manifestations, from a person to a bird to a sky to a light. Everything is a manifestation of the same thing. This is the, not proof, but the indication that everything is one, believe it or not. The next concept is illusion, which is beyond me, but I came to, I'll take you to a point, but I'll let Abby first give you the Hindu explanation.
Well, it's a small demonstration of a physics concept that we use in daily life. It is based upon the principle of reflection that we see and witness in mirrors and in glasses. And the other one is the principle of seeing the impression of the thing on a film. That means instead of thinking that thing as a mirror, you now perceive that thing as a lens. Those are the ways we are seeing things. We are either seeing it through a lens or we are seeing it through a mirror. And based upon these things, physicists, they come up with ideas that replicate the same thing about the workings of our universe. They tell us that how things are distributed in the universe, and that universe is kind of a hologram that is not exactly what you think it is. And that hints towards the non-dual principle that the Vedas talk about, that there is a duality and you have to appreciate both sides of the coin to understand the full thing. And what Sam tries to demonstrate by this experiment is that the same thing can manifest itself in a two-dimensional form. The same thing can manifest itself into a three-dimensional form. You could still say it as a three-dimensional form, but then he's going to put in front of you another thing that you could still say as a three-dimensional form. But there is a subtle difference between those three-dimensional forms, and it is that difference that makes the other form a four-dimensional form. And that brings that element closer to what we see in reality.
This is a little statue of Krishna right here. It's hard to see. That's not this little one. If you put in front of a mirror, there's one under here. If you put in front of the mirror, you see the reflection. That's an illusion. Nothing is there, but you see something. It's a two-dimensional illusion. You cannot touch it, but you know it's there. So that's an illusion. This one is this is a laser light here. This is a hologram. You'll see. This is set up downstairs. You can go and see it. If you look here, you can see that in there. If you move this way and that way, you can see it as three dimensions. It's like this is behind there. Because you can go left and right, you see all sides. But if you look behind, there's nothing there. This is an illusion, a three-dimensional illusion. And this is what we see now. But that's a four-dimensional illusion. There's a next component, the time. So it's hard for me to understand how time makes all this an illusion, but that will be the subject next time. So, and there's Krishna that supervises everything. This is set up downstairs, and you can see the hologram. The idea is that this is a three-dimensional hologram. We, right here, we are the four-dimensional hologram. The fourth component is time, but there's nothing there, it's just an image. It's an illusion, what we see. This is an illusion, but it looks like that because of time. This is an illusion, but there's no time there, so you see it right there. You see it three dimensions. If you go downstairs, you'll see it. It's a cheap version of a hologram. The Brahman's hologram is us. So When you go downstairs and see it, that's a $100 hologram. If you really want to see something, it's a nice demonstration to show what illusion is. So all this was an illusion. Now, downstairs we have baklava to eat, and you can see this experiment too. But before we go there, if you have any questions, we try to answer them. One more thing I forgot to say about Einstein. He came up with a theory of relativity, but I think there's another theory that I believe, which is we're all relatives.
All right.
Oh, there it goes.
So if you have any questions, you can ask Sam, and
That's the end of the show because there's no more secret.
you can go and pass around the mic.
Anyone wants to? Oh, you say that. No.
There's a button over there. Turns green.
Okay, now it's on. So I'm really glad that both of you did this. So we're very
Proud of us.
blessed that you two did so much work to pull this off. And yeah, you did. I know. I'm witnessing. But Abby, I wonder if you could talk more about. You said we only see through reflection, a mirror or a lens. Can you talk more about that? Is there no possible direct vision without those sort of intermediaries?
So you have to remember that your eyes is a lens. It's not, if you take it out, you would see a concave lens.
Right.
And it's the aqueous humor, it's the fluid that's the lens. And what you're seeing is a result of the interference pattern that is being formed because light is traveling and passing through your eyes, and then forming an image in your cornea, and that sends a signal to the Brahma, and what you're seeing is what Brahma is telling you to see. It's like an interpretation of that signal that you received. But to be able to receive it in the best sense is when that signal gets tuned to Om.
So you're
Now the Om as a background.
yeah.
That's the carrying wave, as they say in the radio talk.
So you're making the distinction between sensation and perception.
Yeah, so when you see things, you are already seeing, it's given to you that you're already seeing through a lens. And when you see the hologram, and if you look at the little lens that has the red picture in the center of it, that is basically a piece of lens, and it does not have anything. It's just a photographic plate with a thin film of lens. And there is no, you do not see an idol of Krishna. You just see an impression of Lord Krishna in that slab, in that thin glass slab. But how that thing was made is that before you see that impression, the glass.
Here, Sam.
Take the mic.
It's very simple, but I covered it so you think it's complicated. There is a little light here that shines right here. We put this little statue behind this glass. This is actually film. And you let the laser shine on it for about 5 minutes. Some of the rays of the laser fall onto the glass, and they create a pattern. Some of the waves hit the item and then are reflected on the glass. So if you look at the glass, there's nothing there, but inside of it is a pattern of interferences of the light waves. Now, if you take this out, if you take this out, what's left is what you see, a hologram, which is an image that doesn't exist there, but that's what a hologram is. That's what light does. This is just pure light that's been interfered with itself and creates the patterns. When you go downstairs, you can look at it. It's just a plain piece of glass, but in it is the information to form this.
Yeah, so in this experiment, there are like three things. You can see Krishna in the form of a mirror image. You're being able to see Krishna, but the idol is not there right now. You're just seeing the image. And he put a little piece of white paper to say that you can be shown an image, and an object is there or not. It depends on the object. It's upon the will of the object. And the second thing that you see in that lens is, if you would go and see that lens, you would see an impression of the image of Krishna with all the contours trapped inside that lens. It's that little slab. And what you see is a 3D vision. Now you move from two-dimensional vision to three-dimensional vision. It's the same thing that you are seeing the same object in two different ways. And the third way in which he sees the idol is as the idol,
This one.
just the way as it is. But the difference that you should be able to appreciate is that in the first case, in the mirror, you are seeing the idol, but you can never reach the idol. It's always going to stay away from you. In the second impression of the hologram, you still see the 3D contours, and you still see Krishna inside that slab, but you're still not able to reach him. But the third manifestation is the one that allows you to go and touch it. And it is that important role that the knowledge of an act does. You're able to touch it. That is the third eye that you already have, but you just don't know it. And that's what the scripture emphasizes, that there could have had been other ways of making me see you things, but there is a third eye, and that is what the entire scriptures talk about, that when they talk about wisdom, it is that seed of the third eye that is there inside you, and you just need to cultivate it and until it blooms up, and until you can know that you have three eyes. And that's what the purpose is for demonstrating this experiment, that there can be different ways of seeing the same thing, but there's just one way to be able to experience it, to be able to touch it.
That cosmic sound that you first showed, that you compressed that sound in like 10 to the power 29 times, and then you heard that sound,
Yeah.
Om, very similar to Om. Yeah. 10 to the power 29 times you compressed it, yeah. Yes. What kind of wave is that? I mean, it's not a mechanical wave, it's not a sound wave, but
Microwave.
The microwaves.
microwaves.
When the Big Bang happened and the thing exploded, there is a radiation that started going out, and the universe has been cooling since then. But there's always a hum. Thank you. This is the hum when you hear it now too. It's a hum. Well, here you see the actual hum. Here we listen to the hum through the recording. The actual hum, you can hear it if you have the equipment, the electronic equipment. And that's what you just heard. Only it's multiplied many, many times to hear it, because it's so faint. The universe is 14 billion years old, so this happened that far back, but still there are remnants of that explosion. And that's what you hear. And that's what we tune in with, each one of us. And that's why we're on the same page.
The way physicists would talk about these things is that you have a spring, and if you have a small spring, it is difficult to press it. But if I give you this, if you take the same material and if you make a bigger spring, it is easier to compress it. And science likes to think about this as the expansion of the universe. It is saying that the rubber band that we have, it gets stretched and it gets squashed sometimes. That is the cyclic process of the way the universe operates. And it is just the stretching and swashing of that band that we see as waves. And right now we're in that zone when the band is pretty relaxed. Or in other words, you can think of it as a band pulled so that the wavelength has increased. It is not fluctuating too rapidly, but it is fluctuating slowly. And that's why the sound is not, it began off with being like really trebly, with high energy, And right now the rubber band is kind of relaxed.
Now the universe is expanding, and it's slowing down, which means it's questionable if it will keep expanding, if it will stay there, it will go back to where it started from. Whole another life then.
Yeah, I mean, we are at a point when people don't know whether the expansion is going to continue forever, or does it, come back to, is it a cyclic thing or is it not a cyclic thing? That is a point of debate, and you have different schools of thought in physics.
At this point, what they see, when you see up in the sky, you see all the galaxies, everything is going away from each other, away from us and each other, away from each other, which is the way a balloon looks. If you have a balloon and you put dots on it and you blow on it, it expands. And every point gets away from the other point. And that's why that's an indication that the universe is expanding.
So the idea was that there's always a background noise to all the processes. If you're watching the TV, if you're switching on a dish antenna, and if something happens, then you see the noise. That noise is the background noise. And that is the noise that all the plants live on, although we are not aware of it, but that's the sound of nature. And everything is tuned to it. That is the frequency at which the radios operate. That is the frequency at which the natural processes work.
Hello.
Thank you. Hello. So when people do very deep meditation and they become in tune to that expansion and contraction, because if you go into a really deep meditation, you can actually feel that. You could feel that.
Yeah.
But then what happens is that you start seeing the insight and wisdom that is within, and I think that's where the Vedas came from. When I'm not sure, I'm asking you. And so, how do physicists see this? That I know we're talking about matter, but how can you go beyond the matter and go into the wisdom and insight that people that are serious about their practice and of meditation, because the Buddha never spoke about God. That will not come up at all. It's about this that you're speaking about. But it was too difficult for him to talk about that. And I know that's what I'm studying right now. I'm really doing Tibetan Buddhism. And when I start reading different things like the Lam Rim, that the geshes and lamas will teach, because it's verbal. It's not written. The Buddha taught verbally, and now that's how the lineage goes. But the thing is that they always talk about you need to gain the insight, and you gain that through the meditation. How do physicists see that? Do they think that there is? I mean, I don't know where the insight comes from if it's not a being.
There's this thing about about Siddhartha, that he always spoke in parables, and the one thing that he made clear was that this is something that I understand, and I don't even know how to put it in words, because it is something that cannot be spoken out. So the best that he can do is to put them in the form of parables and make it more accessible to the people. And then he mentions clearly that I'm not telling you what the knowledge is, because it cannot be told by me. It's meant for you to experience. All I can say is that there is a way to do it, and that it is a natural process. It is a natural process, that enlightenment is not something to aim for in the afterlife.
Right.
It is a natural process, and it is just the cleansing of your body. And the problem with today's physicists is that they cannot reconcile this idea that it is not gonna come from doing experimentation, because the Buddha made it clear that it comes only from practice.
Right.
And the instrument is your body.
Right.
You already have the best and the most evolved instrument that the universe owns, and it is up to each one of us to use it. And this is the simple thing that physicists need to reconcile with. They don't have to. They have to learn from what they're seeing in the external world, but eventually you have to use it on your own body.
The thing is that by the physicist, if something cannot be measured, it doesn't exist. You can only talk about things that you can measure. Concepts don't exist because they cannot be measured. That's why science has evolved from you take an atom, matter, it's an atom, you go deeper, 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 deeper. You can go as far as you can see and measure, but with the mind you can go beyond that. That's the limitations of science. You can go as far as your instruments allows you, and the instruments are faulty, they're not perfect. And our senses that look at the instruments are faulty. So you have fault times fault in science, while in the Vedantas you have intellect. But we believe in science because it's you can touch it more than the concepts.
So you've been talking about a frequency or a sound of nature. Do we know what that frequency is or what that pitch might be?
So it depends if you're measuring them in terms of electromagnetic waves or mechanical waves like sound waves. In terms of sound waves, the radio channels operate at 432 hertz, and some of them operate at some other frequencies, but the standard one is 432. And so that is the resonance frequency when you're seeing it as a form of electromagnetic wave. But if you're seeing that in terms of sound waves, then the resonance comes when your heart resonates with it. So the mechanical pulse automatically synchronizes with the beating of your heart. And that measure is a different measure, but they are one and the same thing. Because resonance is, after all, resonance.
As you saw the experiment with tune, you can, if you resonate with something, you can. With resonance, everything is in tune. We can. The simplest thing is what you heard, the cosmic radiation, that it contains all the sounds, so everything is in tune with that. The Om. And you hear it right now, and it's following us. Any other questions?
Anything else?
But yes.
Force in government or man's inhumanity man. What impact does this have on nature? Because it would seem to me that it would be disruptive. And how does it manifest itself? Are we seeing these
No, you have to hold it.
Okay. Are we seeing this because of our extremes in weather? I know this might sound ridiculous, but what impact does this have on nature? Because it seems like it's very much against it.
I get your point. That is exactly what Buddhism talks about. It says that violence is in the head is a result. It results in the violence that we see in the external world. It is just a manifestation. When you're angry, you behave angrily. But if you're trying to understand the rising of that anger, you take control of it. And you don't let itself manifest in your bodily actions. And that's the entire point of Buddhism, is that take control of your passions and of the feelings and sensations, and understand the right purpose as to why nature put them in the first place for you. It's not meant to be spontaneously emitted out. It is meant to be absorbed and and see what it is and what it does. And you're right that, I mean, I think all of us believe that it is the internal violence in our heads that spreads out and takes the form of the societal violence. And then as a result of it, in extreme cases, you see what you see happening, the bad things. So it is all interconnected.
I think it's time for baklava. And you can see this experiment, and you can see the actual hologram right there. It's downstairs. And from what I see, each one of us is a hologram in the universe.